plan is really trying to have young people for this 10-year span, starting with 7th grade, 8th grade. We have a program called Powered by Service, which introduces the new look model. We operate with 4 pillars. Our 4 pillars are talent, education, career, and service. I'll say that again: talent, education, career, and service. Those are the building blocks that we put in place that all of our curriculum, all of our activities touches on. So when you start with Powered by Service, the way it works is you could think of like a pep rally slash school takeover. We come in, we have some of our older students. So let me fast forward real quick. We have 3 programs: Powered by Service, New Look Leadership Academy, and Moguls in Training. New Look Leadership Academy is 9th through 12th grade. Moguls in Training is for our post-secondary students. So if you're in college, technical, whatever, you're a mogul in training or an MIT. So when we do Powered by Service with these middle school kids, we bring our MITs in to conduct the training. So it's a power that works differently when you have near peers or people that are closer in age.
This is where I can get to short term.
Exactly, man. Exactly. And also, like, the message is coming from somebody I relate with differently. So, you know, for a long time in this space, I had the gift of looking young before I got all this gray hair. You know what I mean? And yeah, exactly. So it allowed me to speak to young people differently and relate. Like, we could talk about music and all that good stuff. But now, you know, we're the old men in the room. That window is closed for me. So I have to reinvent myself and figure out how do I still have impact. So using those moguls or the MITs to talk to the young people is how we get their ear. And what they do is they break students out into groups and they talk about lots of different things just based on our curriculum. So it's an introduction to what we do, getting them to get familiar with the pillars, talking about why education matters and considering your pathway, thinking about career, why financial literacy matters, and you know what you need to be thinking about. So it's a really interesting way for students to learn about critical elements that they'll need as they get older, but to have them start thinking about it from middle school. So think about, like, if somebody came to you, I don't know about all of y'all, nobody talked to me like that, but if somebody could lay those things out for me in 7th or 8th grade, just think of how your trajectory might look, right? You can be a lot more intentional about how you move. Like your field of study may be more aligned with what really resonates with you versus doing something that your parents told you should do because you should be a doctor because you're good at science. So you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You like to argue, so you should be a lawyer. That may be true, but it may not be true. And a lot of times,
Man, cool, know all about that. Stuck in that damn blue degree program.
For
right?
real.
Right? You know, and you know, this is you know, I can talk about how, like, systemic racism and all this stuff impacts how your family moves. We don't always have the freedom to explore all these different things, right? You get in school and you're on the clock. Like, the dollars are rolling. You may have student loans, and you don't have time to, like, take a year off and travel the world and figure shit out. You got to get in school and get out, right?
Right.
And you don't, you know, your parents don't have that, may not give you that cushion where you can bomb out of one situation and start fresh and do it over. So, you know, we want to try to help people figure things out earlier. So that's Powered by Service. Leadership Academy is a lot more intentional. So each year is built on one of the pillars. So our first year, talent, is a lot about self-reflection and introspection and figuring out what it is that drives you, and identifying what we call spark. And spark is your passion. It's something that makes you fired up, and it's something that drives you, like something you want to do. So we try to help young people figure out what their sparks are, and then think about their personal brand, like how you carry yourself. You know, how do you articulate yourself? And one of the things I love about this particular moment in time is that we can be our authentic selves, and not to say that you couldn't before, but to me, I think there's a lot more space for you to be authentically whoever you are, whether it's wearing your hair long or you know, wearing a beard. We're at a point in time where, you know, that kind of thing that might have been frowned on years ago is changing. So it's creating a new lane for people to really explore who they are and step into it. And that's one of the things I really enjoy about being in this position is you can really, like, lean into helping young folks get on this journey. So that first year is really about, like, figuring out who you are, trying to build your personal brand and thinking forward. Second year is about education. So how do you align that spark with your studies, and teaching different techniques to make yourself successful in the classroom. Third year, we move into thinking about career. So we're looking at networking. And we do the networking thing earlier, but we're a lot more intentional as in that third year. So networking, finding industries that are appealing to you and building those bridges so that you can start making inroads early, that can help you get those opportunities. And the last piece is service. So we are really about building servant leaders. And if you're not familiar with the idea of servant leadership, it's a different construct about being a leader. And it's, instead of people trying to figure out how do people cater to my needs as the big person or the big cheese, I'm trying to figure out as a leader, how do I develop people and address needs of a broader audience? And that's what we are really pushing with our young people, is the concept of servant leadership. So students lead projects and try to figure out how do they have impact in community. So I'll give you an example, and this will probably come up as we get a little further, so I won't talk about it too long. But in this election season, we relaunched a campaign, and I'm leading this campaign. It's called I Can't But You Can. And I'll say it again, I can't but you can. And the idea is to empower young people that are not of voting age to have impact on get out the count or get out the vote efforts. So I might be 16.
Actually, run with that, bro, because that's a perfect segue to one of the questions that was coming up.
Cool.
In terms of youth engagement in the political process and why that's important.
Yeah, it's critically important, man. I mean, research says that the younger people get connected to voting, the more likely they are to vote over their lifetime, right? And you guys know, I mean, you know what it's like to feel disconnected and feel like you're marginalized and your voice isn't heard. And we have a lot of folks that really believe their vote doesn't matter. And we could probably argue about how much it matters, but the reality is that it's a critical piece of a process. It's not the only thing, because you have to protest, you have to have people in political seats of power, you have to have people on the business front that can help control and manipulate, like Goldie said, right? That can control and manipulate these politicians and whomever, but you can't leave out the voting piece, right? So this campaign is designed to help young people think about ways that they can impact. First of all, to understand it's important for them to get involved and get educated, no matter where you start. But think about how can you individually and collectively with your unit impact elections, whether it's local, state, or federal. We have to think about how do we get young people involved in this process, because the reality is the numbers are in young people's favor. There are a lot more young people than there are older people, and baby boomers are aging out and are not in a position where they're going to have the numbers on their side going forward. So we're trying to figure out ways to get young people to think strategically. And we had a kickoff event on the 24th where we had 2 panels. We had a panel of young organizers and advocates, and then we have more seasoned folks like us to talk about why it's important to have youth engagement and to talk about their broader engagement efforts. So our young folks, Nikki Duncan Smith from Spelman, her daughter, Eden Duncan Smith, is an actress and advocate. She was one of our panelists, and she talked about what advocacy means for her. We had another young lady from an organization called Project South. She's based in New Orleans, and student at Xavier, and she talked about her organizing efforts. Then on the adult side, we had Cliff Albright from Black Voters Matter Fund to talk about the valuable work they're doing. And if you're not familiar with Black Voters Matter, definitely look them up. We had a sister that's
them all the time.
yeah, man. I mean, their work, like you can argue that their work has really shifted Black folks' engagement to a large extent, or fighting for the rights to get people access, and fighting to get against voter suppression and get some of these voting precincts open that have been closing magically around election time, right? So it was cool to have folks like that. And then to bring some diversity to the panel, it's a sister named Genesis Aquino, who's an organizer and advocate in New York. She's a native of Dominican Republic, but a New York citizen, to talk about her housing advocacy and how she's advocating for Latinos and Afro-Latinos. So that was our kickoff. And then each Wednesday, we've been having sessions on a list of topics. So our first session was with the Center for Law and Social Policy. We covered Policy and Advocacy 101 and demystifying what that process is like. So taught young people about what a policy agenda is and how can they mobilize to make change. We had Brother Hassan Jeffrey, excuse me, let me put some respect on his name, Dr. Hassan Jeffries. He talked about youth involvement in securing Black voting rights and talked about.
Hassan and Nikki were both former guests on the show, actually.
I know, man. I know.
Yeah.
I feel privileged, man. I'm not, my pedigree is not that high where I can put a doctorate on my name, but I know a little something. But no, all jokes aside, man, it's great to see brothers like I said, man. I remember being on the yard and cutting up with all of y'all, and now seeing people, really flex their intellectual capital, man. It's beautiful. So Hassan talked about a lot of the history behind securing Black voting rights. I had Mo Ivory and Mawuli Davis to talk from an attorney perspective on advocacy and why protesting is not enough and why youth involvement matters. I had a brother named Philip Agnew last week to talk about the convergence of technology and social activism. And he talked about his work in Ferguson and how as a tech person, he and other individuals helped to protect people who were protesting from FBI surveillance and police surveillance and lots of things that, it was a crazy conversation, but much needed for young people to be aware of this stuff. This week is a big week for us because we're trying to close out and make this hard push. So tomorrow, I'm real happy to announce we're going to be expanding our work into the Dominican Republic. We're hosting a session called No Puedo, Pero Tú Puedes, which means I can't, but you can. It's in Spanish.
Damn, dog, you speak Spanish for real.
Hey, man, I know enough to be dangerous.
Shit, it sound like you speak more than dangerous. You speak this is real, dog. Damn.
It's been a blessing, man, really.
Well,
really.
yeah.
He's extremely fluent. Don't let him fool you.
I hear it.
I've been in other countries with him, and he's my communicator.
Hey, I'll be like Buenos Dias. You know what I'm saying? He got the accent and everything, man. It's like, oh, you got this shit down, man.
Yeah. So, No Puedo, Pero Tú Puedes is tomorrow. We have students from the Dominican Republic and then Spanish-speaking students from the States getting together to talk about democracy and why it's important for young people to get involved in the democratic process. And then also to talk about, to compare and contrast the differences between the States and Dominican Republic. So I'm excited about that. Wednesday, we are holding a voter suppression and advocacy training with a group called And Still I Vote. That's going to be cool, where young people can really get in-depth analysis and understanding around what voter suppression is, what it looks like, because you all watch the news and you see all these lines, particularly in the South, right? People waiting, 3 and 4 hours trying to figure out, what they're going to do, like how I'm going to cast my vote. Like, think about that.
Shit is crazy, man.
It's crazy, man. It's fundamentally wrong because I have to make a hard decision. Like, for some people, if I work an hourly job and I want to vote and I have to take a whole day, I'm jeopardizing my job. I'm jeopardizing what
rent.
Yeah, everything. So
in a cool neighborhood, you vote in 5 minutes.
Right. That's not by design. That's not by accident. Right. And another thing on this tip, man, there's a film on YouTube. It's called Suppress: The Fight to Vote.
Yeah, I saw that. Yep.
Yeah, it's like 37 minutes. Y'all should watch it, man. It probably would be a great conversation topic because it shows how in the gubernatorial election here in Georgia, where Brian Kemp stole it from Stacey Abrams, it talked about the length that people went to keep people away from polls, like how they scrub voter rolls, like there may be a discrepancy in an address like that you lived at years ago and they sent your stuff there and then you didn't respond in time, so you get removed. Lots of like crazy tactics, but all by design to eliminate the number of people who can vote, and particularly people from Black and brown communities. So our session on Wednesday will talk a lot about that. And then Thursday, we have a session called Your Vote is Your Voice, where we'll have a a couple of organizations that really lean into organizing Latino votes to kind of talk about their work and why it's important, again, to be active. So that's that. And then on Monday, we have a session called Athletes as Advocates, which I'm real happy to get going. We're going to add entertainers as well. But we have a sister named Laisha Clarendon. She plays for the New York Liberty, and Reggie Bullock that plays for the Knicks, to talk about social activism from a player standpoint and how athletes can use their platform to affect change. So that's happening. We're getting ready to launch this TikTok challenge. I know y'all old heads don't know about TikTok.
I do.
Oh no, we do. Yeah.
I saw a cool hot girl dance on there.
Yeah.
Hot girl summer TikTok.
But
City boy winning.
Yeah. We're doing a TikTok challenge to get young people.
Has some other stuff too, though.
We say?
TikTok has some other stuff too, though.
Oh, yeah.
It does.
That's a conversation for another day.
We want you to talk about the WAP challenge.
Yeah,
what you say?
Call it the third rail.
Hey, didn't
try to stay away from them controversial topics. Go ahead, Lou.
Didn't the youth use TikTok to try to
they shut down that Trump rally
on Trump's
That's why he was going hard on TikTok in the media about trying to get them shut down.
Yeah.
But see, that's an example of how youth have power, right? A lot of times we run this mind game on young people because we have to in our household to maintain order, but they need to understand what their power is. Like that right there, that action right there changed the trajectory of his recruiting effort, right? He had this big event plan based on these numbers that were created by these young people who they pulled a fast one on him.
Right. Everybody showed up with nobody there.
There was nobody there. That's power, man. I love that, man. That's the kind of like cool. That's the stuff that gets me amped up, man.
Yeah.
So we're launching a TikTok challenge to get young people, to inspire people to vote. That's one. And then we have this other initiative called Turn Up to Turn Out the Vote. And it's through a partnership with this organization called Turnout Nation. Turnout Nation has an app. They work with an app called Empower. And what it does is it allows you to create a network of people that you can contact about their voting plan. So I say I sign up for Turnout Nation. Y'all are in my list of 10. I can keep track of my conversations with you. So it'll ask me questions like, all right, have you talked to Lou by phone, text, or email? Does Lou have a voting plan? Is he registered? Has he voted? Is he planning on voting in person or absentee ballot? You can keep track of all this information. And what we'll do at the end is we want to see what kind of impact the young people that sign up have on this process. So it's another way of getting them to exercise their power and see how they have influence. So I'm really excited about it. What you say?
That sounds like, I don't know how I got on someone's texting list called Defend the Black Vote.
Okay.
Have you guys been contacted by them? They've been pinging me if I'm going to vote.
Voters matter, though.
Say it again.
Black voters matter. They text me Sunday.
Yeah.
It sounds like the same mission.
Yeah.
Reminding
actually,
me.
I think somebody called me actually, but I'm, but here in Wakanda, I got a polling place in my building, so I'm just gonna get up. You know what I'm saying? Walk downstairs, you know what I'm saying? My robe open and shit, you know what I'm saying? But I'm doing it on election day, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna have a rope tied.
So Geoff, I got a question for you, man.
Right.
What's up, man?
So you answered my question about kids in the political process. My question is, is it a school? Is it an after school program? How do you select the kids and all that kind of stuff?
So we work in a number of different ways. So we worked after school. We've worked where we were able to pull kids out of class or during like free periods or elective periods. We're constantly evolving, man. And with COVID, it's really pushed us to think differently about how we interact. So fortunately, before the pandemic hit, we set up the infrastructure to do virtual programming. And what we've been doing since early May was each week offering different kinds of content through Zoom on things from career exploration to mental health and wellness to we have something we call Motivational Monday, where somebody like Cool who can, you know, sell water to a whale can come on and and you know, give them this lift that they need to hear. We talked about we do virtual job shadow where we partner with companies and get people to come on and talk about their career path and what they do and what it's like to work in an organization. So that's how we're operating right now. Because schools are not open, and even if they are open, it's you know, people are not really allowed to come in as outsiders in the school spaces. So it's been a challenge in that, you know, I think a lot of kids are suffering from fatigue, man, from you know, being online all day for classes, and then, you know, you got to roll around at 5 or 6 o'clock and jump on another session. It can be challenging.
Yeah. Okay.
But you know, we really try to make sure that we're building the authentic bonds with our students. Our staff is really adept at learning the needs and learning the students that are in our program, and trying to make sure that we build authentic relationships with them.
Okay. Cool.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Hey, Geoff, speaking of COVID, what would you say your observation has been of the impact and the effect that COVID has had on the youth and the families in you all's program?
It's been a challenge, man. You know, we're living in unprecedented times, and everyone is having to behave differently. It's not just young people, it's the parents too. So just think, we're all like, now you're used to being out working in your different spaces, and now everybody's home. So let's think about, you know, what that means. If I'm in a household of 4 people, 5 people, and we're doing virtual learning, that means and it's 3 children, I need 3 devices, right? Yeah. Everybody doesn't have 3 computers. Right? Particularly, you know,
I never would have thought about that like that.
Yeah. So I'm, you know, a lot of times when you hear
the bandwidth to hold 3 computers or 3 phones and all that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, that's just start right there. You know, what does that, and then on top of that, everybody might not have high-speed internet. So if you add a device and you have low speed, what does it do to your speed?
Exactly.
Especially with video calls, you know what I'm saying?
Video
calls for me at work.
Exactly. So what does it look like when you have low speed and you're on a video call?
Exactly.
Lag. You got sync.
So think about what that means as a teenager in a group of teenagers. Carl B has high speed, Chuck has high speed, Crump has high speed, Lou doesn't, Michael does. I'm looking at Lou like, man, okay, man.
What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you, man? And we already joning at that age anyway. Add that on there. So it adds another layer of anxiety and stress that people don't often acknowledge. Like a lot of times, man, I've had to, you know, when I talk to folks who are presenters, you know, we have this conversation where, you know, there's this argument in the education space about should students show up on video. And your first thought in mind is like, you know, it's out of respect. I need to have you on video so I can see your face, right? I want to be able to connect with you, but that's not taking into consideration the things we just talked about. Right? So what if when I show up on video, my screen freezes, and when I try to talk, every other word is distorted, so I can't articulate what I'm saying. You know, somebody might screenshot it and then shoot it out to their networks, and I'm the meme for the week. You know what I mean?
You know, Lou got the dickhead internet and shit.
Exactly. It's stressful.
And you know, what's funny part is the people that are making these decisions oftentimes have no concept of not having those resources.
Exactly.
Because their kids all got iPads and laptops, and they got the fucking extreme internet and all that other stuff. They can't conceive of the fact that somebody like who doesn't have a laptop and an iPad. You know what I'm saying? They can't even conceive of that.
Yeah. And then the other piece too, you know, the other piece too is for a lot of young folks, the study meals that they can depend on comes from being in school. So now you've added the food insecurity piece to the conversation. So, you know, it's just a lot, man. It's a lot to think about. And you know, I try to be very sensitive, and we as a unit try to be sensitive to that and offer people that space to say, if you want to turn on your camera, great. If not, that's cool. We understand. But you know, that's
and then also you got
you
got them crazy parents and shit too. You got, you know, parents yelling in the background, and you know, just the home environments aren't necessarily built for the outside world coming into your home.
Right.
A lot of times people leave their homes. A lot of these kids leave home to leave that shit behind.
Exactly.
And now you're putting that camera right into the shit they want to get away from.
That's right.
And their parents sometimes don't have a decorum to fucking, exactly.
You know, have y'all seen that video? I know y'all seen the video. It's like a Zoom class of like a preschool. I mean, a kindergarten.
And the mom,
the mom came in there.
Yep.
One kid is like passed out. Like this. I mean, that's real, man. I mean,
it is.
You know, it's tough, man. You know, I'll say that for me was like something we had to really think about. And you know, parents who can't work are now at home, and the stress that they're experiencing gets passed on to everyone around. Like, shit, I got stressed. I know I've had some arguments in the crib that are definitely exacerbated because of this COVID thing. But you know, man, it's a lot, man. We were fortunate enough. We got some grant funding to offer COVID relief to families in need. So I think we've given out like in excess of $60,000 to families to help with utilities and rent.
Big time.
Just, you know, things to help people get by, man. You know,
that's huge.
But this COVID thing is tough, man, because just think, man, what if we were in school? What if we were, say, freshmen in college when COVID hit? Think about what your experience is like. I mean, like I told the story about Shake freshman week. I would have never had that opportunity in COVID, you know, standing on the wall on a Friday, you know, it was fun, but it was therapeutic for us, man. It's a way we all got to just chop it up and you know, just build bonds. I mean, a lot of kids are not able to experience that. Or what if you
missing that freshman week mind fuck and you don't get to do that, like look to your left, look to your right, one of these losers ain't gonna be here.
Hey, I remember that moment. I remember who I was sitting with. I remember it's like, I don't know which one of y'all it's gonna be, but it's not gonna be me.
That's right. I think the guy on the left didn't make it, but the one on the right made it.
Yeah,
that's funny.
I'll sit next to Ross, Leonard Ross.
He made it.
I was waiting to get the other motherfucker, so maybe he ain't make it.
Yeah. Streat used to be like a Bigfoot. How I came across meeting Streat. I used to hear Cool and other cats used to be like, yo, you know G Streat? I was like, I don't know that motherfucker. And then when he was in business school, we got real tight. Got all kind of stories now. This is my brother right here.
Absolutely.
But y'all making me wish I'd gone to motherfucking Clark, man. I was at Georgia Tech, man. I wish I'd gone to fucking Clark B School. It seemed like I was kicking over there, man.
Yeah, we were, man. It was a great time. It was extension.
Oh, man.
I was in law school. They was in B school.
Yep.
So, Streat, I got a question for you, man. I think everybody on this call, at least I hope, understands our responsibility to the youth. But in the busyness of our day-to-day lives, when COVID is not putting a damper on everything, people have their own corporate or entrepreneurs have their time taken already. And then we all have kids who have their own activities and we're trying to raise them. But we owe a responsibility to those who don't have the same opportunities that we have. Can you speak to those who may be doing this, what that responsibility is?
Yeah.
And how they can work even when they're juggling their own things, how they can do things to help the youth?
No, that's a great question. You know, I think it can be a lot of different things. You often hear people talk about time, talent, and treasure. And I think that it can be those things singularly or in combination. I hope it would be in combination. But it's just figuring out, you know, what you're capable of doing. I think one, it also starts with with coming in with an open mind. And, you know, a lot of times we're conditioned to think that because things happen a certain way to us, that that's the right way and the only way. And something as Black men that we have to still figure out, and I think a lot of us have talked about this in this space, is we have to unlearn some of the toxic shit we've experienced over our lives, and some of the lessons that were reinforced. And you know, all of us turned out fine, but it doesn't mean that that's the right thing to happen, right? Some of y'all have been parents a lot longer than me, so you know, and you're already acting this out. But it really applies. I think it applies especially when you're dealing with other people who are not your children, and you know, trying not to be judgmental when you step into a space. Not saying that's what anybody would do, because I know y'all brothers, but just wanting to call it out, because it happens a lot when people have good intentions. So I'll give you an example. I'm not the biggest fan of one-off events. So when I was managing the Upward Bound program, and I think, Cool, you probably came to one of the career days, if I'm not mistaken. But I would have a career day where I would get maybe 60 people from my network in different professions and bring them in to talk to young people about what they do. And it was good on one hand in that they got the exposure. But what I didn't do enough of was on the back end is solidifying the relationships after in a way that was meaningful for not just the people who were coming back to volunteer, but for the young people that they touched. So I'm saying that to say that, you know, for us, I'm very big about showing up and being consistent in the way you show up. That doesn't mean you got to come every day or every week, but trying to be impactful in more than just one setting where it ends up really being about you and not about the people you're hoping to impact. So, you know, Cool can roll in on the Range Rover, talk to the kids living in the Bluff, and then at the end of the day, peace out, go back to the crib, and they're still in the Bluff, right? That's not transformational. So, you know, my challenge is to think about, of the time, talent, and treasure, which of those can you share? And Lou's question is, how do you share it? Like, how are some ways? So, you know, one is volunteering. It's also mentoring young people and helping them to get to know you and getting familiar with the things that they're interested in, and then talking about possibilities, and then leveraging your networks to open some doors so that they can experience some of these possibilities. That's a big part of our work. And one of the things I'll be reaching out to folks as we continue to expand about, you know, how can we create pathways into your businesses? You know, how can you help young people to understand some of the skill sets that they need to be successful in a law firm like Crump? You know, what are some of the skills you need to possess so that what's the educational pathway look like? Can you help me think about my essays and how to write a law school essay? You know, how do I study for the LSAT? Because those are things like a lot of us just kind of, you know, you knew about it, right? From either from school or somebody in your network, but a lot of people don't get that, man. So, you know, how do we create these pathways and these bridges to help young people become the next employees in your organization as you get older? Like when you're thinking about succession planning, you know, how do I build this next wave of people to take over for me? Or if I'm an entrepreneur and I have a product or service, how do I help build young people into a state where they're self-sufficient and can pay for my service or buy my product? That doesn't happen, I mean, by accident, but if we can be intentional and strategic about how we do it, we can get a lot more people in better spaces. So that's another. And if time is something that you don't have, you know, cut a check. You know, there are programs like, you know, in order for us to do what we do, we need funding. And I'll be candid with y'all because y'all are my family. It's a gift and a curse with having the name Usher on the organization. Because, you know, you think of Usher, he's this high profile celebrity. But the reality is, while we're very fortunate to have him help fund our operation, the funding by itself is not enough for us to really be impactful and expand like we need to. So, for example, like when we talk about bridging out to the Dominican Republic or setting up a new club in Texas, you know, there's resources involved in making that happen. So that's another way. Offering internships. You know, we value time, right? Your time is your money. A lot of time we expect young people to do things for free. And this is why I say unlearn some of the things we had to do. A lot of us volunteered and you didn't get paid. Doesn't make it right though. So you can offer internships that pay people, and that's a deterrent to doing something else that's illegal to get money, right? I can actually be working towards my craft, my future career, and getting paid for that experience.
Yeah, that's ironic because you kind of just answered the question that I was going to ask you as far as what we can do as Morehouse men and people in general, to keep this program going, to make this program historical, somewhat like Boys Club, Boys and Girls Club, because it sounds like it is a great program because you are getting that early start with the youth.
Yeah.
And that's what we need, because when we came to college, it was survival of the fittest.
Right.
And a lot, we kind of like we worked together. It wasn't no competition. We always had each other's back, but
that's right.
We learned a lot of stuff at that point of our lives. If we would have had what you're doing, like you said earlier, man, that would have been, we would probably be some high power. We probably would have had a lot more black presidents. Right. At least a Morehouse man would have been a president. But yeah, so man, Streat, you doing this is awesome, man.
Hey man, I appreciate it, brother. And I appreciate you guys for having me and giving me the space to talk about this stuff.
I was trying to cut you off and say, nah, we appreciate you. You know what I'm saying? We've had a lot of singular guests on, and you know, sometimes they will drag it on or whatever. This is some interesting topic. This is an interesting topic, man. So we appreciate your time and appreciate you blessing the podcast coming on today, man.
Hey man,
Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Like I said, look, man, we got a good one in the books today. Like I said, everybody glad you brought in your feedback and whatnot, your commentary. Again, thanks to Geoff Streat, Side 94, Morehouse 96. The House 94 podcast, thehouse94.com, House 94 podcast, IG, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Apple TV, Apple. Like, comment, all of that. Subscribe. So
let me throw one more plug in there, Carl B, before you sign off. Hey, please donate. Go to ushersnewlook.org and click the donate button. Well, feel free to reach out.
We'll get that link up. We'll get the link up in there.
Yeah, I definitely will circle back with you all, and we could definitely use the support.
That's a rude, dog. Appreciate you coming on. All right, fellas.
Appreciate
it.
it.
All right, fellas.
Appreciate it.
Deuces.
Deuces.